Lord's Prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Al, is there any changes or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I've got one change. We're going to pull agenda item number 5 from the agenda.
Okay, agenda item number 5 removed from the agenda. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda, or are there any items that need to be discussed? So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Tonight on the consent agenda, we do have a proclamation for Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson Day. I don't believe that the Lieutenant Colonel's with us, but I believe some of his family is here with us. Do you have, Al, do you have the actual proclamation?
Yes, it's under C.
Okay.
Here, I believe it's in your book.
Okay, if the family would like to come forward.
While she's coming forward, I talked to Keith last week when he was here. He stopped by my house. He worked for me as a kid and really was an outstanding young man. He was really something special.
Good, good, good. Well, I know that you're proud of him, and I just would like to, I know this is on September the 1st, and our clerk is not here today, but we do have a very nice presentation folder for the proclamation, but I'd like to go ahead and read a part of it so that we can have it in the records, okay? All right. Whereas Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Keith Johnson was born on the 25th day of December, 1969, whereas Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson, along with 4 siblings, was born and raised by Mangelin Gibbons in Clewiston, and he's attended Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church until departing for college, and currently attends Divine Baptist Church of Chesapeake, Virginia, with his wife and 8 children. Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson is also known in Clewiston and around the world for his hard work ethic and dedication to family. More importantly, he has embraced his humble beginnings and Southern roots by mentoring and coaching young men and women in their spiritual, professional, and social endeavors. Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson is an avid runner and traveler when not serving his country as a U.S. Army officer. He has dedicated his career to coach, teach, train, and mentor the men and women that serve the United States. Now, therefore, we, the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, agree that it is appropriate to honor Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson as he begins his retirement after 32 years of service to the United States of America, and proclaim the first day of September 2018 as Lieutenant Colonel Keith Johnson Day in the City of Clewiston. We're so very thankful and for a patriot as he is. So will you send our best wishes to him on September the 1st? Okay?
And would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, please. For the record, please come forward.
My name is Danielle Johnson. I'm his daughter-in-law.
And he's also going to be an ROTC officer.
Yes, sir.
Great. Okay. What was your name?
Kayla Johnson. Papa.
Papa.
Papa's,
Okay.
Papa's boy.
And this is one of the younger grandchildren. This is his Khalid Johnson.
Okay. Well, so good to have you here with us, and please, our heartfelt thanks for our patriot from Clewiston. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Okay, tonight we have the presentation of the 2017 Annual Financial Report, and I'll ask David Miller of Boy Miller and Swindle Professional Association. Thank you, David.
What I'd like to do is give you all a quick little tour through the financial statement. It
on some of the highlights.
Put that mic up a little closer, David. There you go.
But before I do that, let me lay a little bit of groundwork. When you look at your financial statement, what you're going to see is there's actually two different presentations in the statement. First of all, there's the fund accounting statements, which is the old way of doing things, but about 10 or 15 years ago, they came up with the government-wide statement, which is a different type of presentation. Now, when we talk about the enterprise funds, which is going to be your electric fund, your water and the sewer, and the solid waste, under the fund accounting and the government-wide accounting, you're going to see the same numbers. Meaning, in both of those presentations, the enterprise funds are full accrual and the numbers will agree. But when you look at the governmental activities, in particular your general fund, the fund accounting, the general fund is presented using the modified accrual basis of accounting. And in the government-wide statements, the general fund is presented, once again, using the full accrual basis of accounting. They are different. In the fund accounting, modified accrual shows basically current assets, current liabilities, and it's referred to as what we would call available resources. So when you're looking at the general fund under fund accounting, you're going to be looking at available resources, meaning resources that are available to be used in the following year. And then when we move over to the government-wide statement and we look at the governmental activities, we're going to bring in the capital assets of the city, and we're going to bring in the long-term debt that relates to the governmental activities, and we're going to convert that fund accounting into full accrual so that it's comparable with the enterprise funds, and the government-wide statement is basically at full accrual. It's a long-range look at the city. Okay. First of all, let me just say that on pages 1 through 3 is our auditor's report. And what that report says, and it's referred to as a clean opinion, is that once we got finished with our audit procedures, that we were able to say that these statements present fairly the financial position and the changes in financial position of the city of Clewiston for the year ended September the 30th, 2017. First of all, I'd like to go to page number 76. And I'm going to talk a little bit about fund accounting first, and then we're going to jump over to the government-wide statements.
David, let me just interrupt you. Sherry, I believe that this is already posted on our website. Is that correct? This information is available already, okay, to the public. Okay, thank you.
And so what you're looking at there on page 76 is your general fund. The first column is your original budget. The second column is the amended budget. The third column is the actual revenues and expenditures for the year ended September the 30th, 2017. And then the final column is a favorable, unfavorable variance column. Now, what you can see there in the actual column is that your actual revenues were $6,463,750. The actual total expenditures was $7,341,166, which means that the expenditures exceeded the revenues by $877,416. But when the transfer in from the enterprise fund is brought in, $1,284,631, then you have a excess of revenues over expenditures of $407,215. Let me also say that up there under expenditures, there is a column for the Hurricane Irma. And through September the 30th, Hurricane Irma impacted the general fund by about $91,000, as you can see there. Okay. Now, in the favorable, unfavorable variance column, there are two large numbers. One number there under the revenues, which is an unfavorable variance, of $1,361,350. And then another large variance under public safety expenditures of $1,442,022. Now, those two variances go together. And the reason for that is that the police station was budgeted in total in this budget. Yet, as we all know, the police station project did not proceed as quickly as had been anticipated. Therefore, since the grant revenues were not received, that's why the large unfavorable variance under the revenues. And since the grant revenues were not received, the money was not expended. Therefore, that's the reason for the large favorable variance under the expenditure. Okay. Let's go to page number 16.
Number what?
16. Once again, this is the governmental funds. And column 1 is your general fund. Column 2 is the CRA. Column 3, under other governmental fund, what that is the State Library Grant Fund. And once again, in fund accounting, we're presenting things based on modified accrual. Therefore, what you're looking at here is current assets and current liabilities, available resources for the city to use in the following fiscal year. And based on that presentation, you can see down under governmental fund that at the end of the year, the governmental fund balance was a positive $4,833. So what we saw there in looking at the budget versus actual was that you beat the budget by quite a bit. Actually, you beat the budget by some $750,000. But what that did was that took the negative fund balance of the general fund and created a positive balance of about $5,000. So in 2016, there was a favorable excess of revenues over expenditures of about $170,000, and this year here it was in excess of $400,000. So in terms of the fund balance, the city is moving in the right direction, and that's a good thing. So now we'll go to page 23. When you want to look at your various enterprise fund, whether it's electric fund, water, sewer, solid waste, and you want to look at revenues and expenditures, here, this is the statement to go to. About halfway down the page, you can see that under operating income, each of the enterprise funds produced income, meaning the operating revenue minus the operating expenses was positive. Also, once again, even though this is fund accounting here, it's full accrual. And so what's included in those expense numbers is a lot of depreciation. So not only did the enterprise fund revenues pay the expenses, it also covered the depreciation of your equipment as well. Once again, that's very good. And then if we take the operating income of the enterprise fund in total, $1,467,588, and we basically subtract the interest expense as it relates to the water and sewer. That's where your big debt is with the revenue bonds. That interest was about $550,000, and we subtract the transfer out to the general fund. Once again, you'll recognize that number, $1,284,631. We end up with a negative change in position of the enterprise fund of about $276,000, which means that the net position of the enterprise funds in total went down during this fiscal year by $276,000.
David, you said that included depreciation?
I'm sorry?
Depreciation was included in that, you said?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And so now we're going to go to page 21 and 22. By the way, if you want a further breakdown of the water and sewer fund, you can find that on page 89. But the column there for water and sewer is further broken down in a supplemental schedule at the back on page 89.
Okay.
On page 21 and 22 is the assets and the liabilities and the net position of your enterprise fund under the full accrual basis. And when you get over to page 22, you can see there that the total net position of your enterprise funds, all three of those activities together, the net position was $27,812,408. Now let's go to page 14. And so we discussed the fund accounting for the enterprise funds and the governmental fund. And so now on page 14, we're looking at the government-wide statement of activities. And in this statement, particularly in connection with the general fund, you're going to see some differences in numbers, once again, because we're converting from a modified accrual to a full accrual basis.
It's on page 14, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
This is what's referred to as a net expense presentation. And the reason it's referred to as a net expense presentation, as you can see there in column 1, you actually start out with expenses. And you reduce those expenses by revenues which are directly associated with that activity, that department, that function. These revenues can be generated by that activity, or it could be contributions received by the state or Henry County that are specifically designated for these functions. So that when you get over to the far right, under the net expense column, what you're looking at there is the net expense to the city of that activity. If you take the expenses minus those income amounts that can be specifically identified to that activity. Let's just take the library, for instance, under culture and recreation, about halfway down the page. The expenses of the library were $488,906. That includes not only what was paid by the general fund, but it would also include your expenses that were paid by the library grant fund as well. That's the total expenses of the library. And we subtract from there various fees that the library would produce, but the main revenue item is under operating grants and contributions, and what's in that number is your library grant from the state, plus the monies that you might receive from Henry County that are specifically designated to the library. So that when you get off to the far right, the library net cost to the city is $221,383 at that point. Now let's flip over to the next page. And I'm going to stay in the governmental activities column simply because we looked at the enterprise fund. But you can see there that the net expense of the governmental activities at this point is a negative $4,750,019. And then below that is the general revenues, those revenues that can't be specifically identified to that activity, are your ad valorem taxes, your state shared revenues. There's the transfer in from your enterprise fund, $1,284,631 again. And so those revenues close the gap. And that's how those services are funded. So that when you get to the very bottom, that's a positive $46,510 on the full accrual basis. Okay? Now, if you'll go to page 13. Here is the government-wide statement of net position. This is all the assets, all the liabilities under the full accrual basis of the city of Clewiston. And those numbers in the business type activities you will recognize if you compare those numbers to the balance sheet under the fund accounting for the enterprise fund. They agree because the presentation, once again, is the same as full accrual. The numbers under the government activities are quite different. And the main reason that they're different, as you can see there, that under capital assets, we're bringing in the capital assets of the city, and under liabilities, we're bringing in the long-term debt of the city as it relates to the governmental activities. Okay? We're going to go to page 48.
David, I got a question.
Sure.
Down at the bottom, we've got the unrestricted, unrestricted, and that's a minus 2,944,885. What? We've got restricted funds and unrestricted funds. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right? So we've got restricted funds of about $7 million.
I know what's bothering you. What's bothering you is the $2.9 million
Right.
being negative, and
Right.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Let me,
All right.
now that I know what you're interested in, I'll work to that way.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good.
But you can see there, and going back to page 13, yes, that in the net position, what's the main things that are broken out in the governmental activities is the investment in capital assets, because that's basically not resources that you can use other than the resources that are currently in an operating type capacity. But in the business type activities, not only are you breaking out your investment in capital assets, you're also breaking out some other restrictions, which are principally related to impact fees, debt covenants in connection with your bonds, and so forth. So let's go to page, Commissioner Rowland, if you'll hang in there now.
All right. I'm good.
I'll get to your question, I promise. Page 48. And I just want to point out that this is a summary of the long-term debt of the city. And it starts with the governmental activities and moves on to the business type activities. And so for any debt of the city, if you want further information, the next 5, 6, 7, 8 pages all relate to these various debts. And we'll give you more detailed information over those next few pages. And actually we'll give you the amortization schedules, the payment schedules, and all your debt covenants and those kind of things. But I point this out simply because for me, this is a good place for me to go and when I start thinking about the city debt, and because it's all right there. And then let's go to page 72. This also is a summary schedule. And And we're working towards Commissioner Rowland's question here. What this schedule does is show you the city's liability in connection with the Florida retirement system and also with your frozen defined benefit plan. Okay? Now, what is happening here is that your payroll that's covered by the Florida retirement system divided by the total payroll of the state of Florida that's covered by the Florida retirement system comes up with a ratio. And based on that ratio, that amount is allocated back to the city in terms of the total pension liability and then the net position of the Florida retirement system that relates to that liability. And so that when we get to the third item, the net pension liability, the city's net pension liability related to the Florida retirement pension plan is $1,779,521. Anybody want to tell me how much control y'all have over that number?
Zip.
Now, the next column, Florida Retirement System Health Insurance Subsidy Program. Your liability related to that program is $277,200. Same question. How much can you change that number? I mean, the Florida Retirement System gives you a percentage of payroll that you pay on a monthly basis. You pay what they ask you to pay. And these numbers are allocated back to you based on various factors. Now, what this is what's referred to as GASB 67 and GASB 68. It's a GASB that required every local municipality and state and local government throughout the United States to bring onto their balance sheet their allocated net pension liability. Okay? Several years back, I want to say 2015, when the GASB came into effect, what happened there is the liability was recorded and what was reduced? The equity of the city was reduced. So in that $2.9 million deficit under the government-wide statement is this pension liability caused a large portion of it when it was recorded. Now, also I can tell you that a large part of that deficit has to do with the Commerce Park. Y'all expended a considerable amount of money out there. You continue to spend money while thinking that the grant was going to pay for some of that. We all know what happened there. And you ended up paying the full tab of all the activity out there. So in that $2.9 million is not only that Commerce Park activity, but also this net pension liability as well. Does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
And when you factor in those two factors, you can actually get back to what the fund balance sort of shows, even on a modified accrual, by taking those factors out of that deficit in the government-wide statement. Okay. I did want to talk just briefly about the frozen defined benefit plan just a little bit, and I'll be done. And let's go to page 87. And what you're looking at there is the return on investments of the frozen defined benefit retirement plan. And I can remember when I was presenting the statement in, that would have been June of 2015. And I was telling you, I thought everything was under control. But you can see there in 2015 what happened to the rate of return. It went negative. And the whole thing flip-flopped. And it raised its head again. But you can see what has happened in 2016 and 2017. Very good rates of return. And not only can you see those good returns, you can also see what has happened to your annual contribution to the frozen defined benefit plan. It continues to go down. Now let's flip over to page 70.
70.
70.
70.
70, yeah. And I want to focus on the little schedule at the bottom of the page there. In the middle, under the 7%. And by the way, 7%, that's the imputed interest rate that the actuaries are using to generate these numbers, okay? But what that little schedule shows you that if your rate of return on the investments in the frozen defined benefit plan go to 6%, what happens there? And you can see if it were to go to 6%, the ugly head would be raised again, right? But look what happens when you go the other direction. If you have another good year, like you've had the last 2 years, you will actually end up with a situation where there's more assets in the plan than there is liability. Wouldn't that be a great thing?
That would be a very good thing.
So that's a crystal ball kind of thing. And I won't make the same mistake I did the last time. Let's see what happens. Okay. So that was a quick run through of what I thought were some of the highlights you might be interested in. If you have any other questions, I can certainly try to answer them. Otherwise, I'm good. I'm going to wrap up my presentation and just tell the commissioners if y'all want to call me and talk to me, feel free to do that. I'm available anytime.
And I can just tell the rest of the commissioners, over the years, I have gone to see David. I've sat down with him and voiced either concerns or just have questions for him, and he's gone through it and in detail, questions that I didn't think about till later. He was able to answer them for me. So I appreciate that very much, David. And I know that you have an open door for each of us.
Be happy to do that for each and every one of you. Just give me a call, and I'll say thank you. Thank you to your finance department.
We'll thank Sherry.
Yes, things went very smoothly.
Good job, Sherry.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
All right, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, I'm going to excuse myself.
Sure.
Bye.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on ordinance number 2018-05. It's the first reading of a zoning land use change request from M.B. Patel. This is a public hearing, and if you wish to speak at this public hearing, we would ask that you stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in by our attorney. Anybody going to speak on this matter? Okay. All right. As mentioned, this is a public hearing. The applicant, M.B. Patel, is requesting a zoning land use change from RM1 to US 27 Corridor Commercial District for the property located at 8815 East Sagamore Avenue. Ordinance number 2018-05 provides for rezoning of the parcel of property located at 815 East Sagamore Avenue and an update of the Clewiston official zoning map. The Planning and Zoning Board met on June 11th, 2018, and recommended approval of the request. The ordinance by title reads, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, providing for rezoning of a parcel of property located at 815 East Sagamore Avenue, Clewiston, public strap number is included, providing for update of the Clewiston official zoning map, and providing for an effective date. There's staff summary reports, letters that were included, the zoning land use change application, the meeting and the public hearing notices that were duly advertised in the Clewiston News. Is there any questions from the commission on this? Any comments by the attorney?
No.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the
Okay,
ordinance.
I'm sorry, let me go ahead and I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and the recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2018-05 on first reading, and to set the public hearing for August 6, 2018. Is that date correct?
I believe so.
Okay, that's over a month away, as well. I was just checking to make sure. Okay, so the public hearing is set for August the 6th, 2018.
Mayor, if you'll take a look at that schedule.
Yeah, I know the next meeting is on the 23rd, but I don't know, on the 16th. Sherry, do you know why that would have been for the August the 6th date? Does anybody have any idea why it would be instead of the 16th, or does it have to be from month to month? I thought there was 10-day requirement or 20-day requirement. Travis, do you know why?
Some requirement, but I don't know if that's just an oversight or we've changed different meeting dates. I'd say we'd go with it. I don't think it's, I'd look at the future and see if we just keep it.
I don't know if having it over a month away, is that, or, gosh, it's even more than that, 5 weeks away?
Meeting's month is the end of July when we go back to.
No, August 6th is the next scheduled meeting, which is the 1st and the 3rd, is the 20th is the next meeting, so. Okay, well, the recommendation is to set the public hearing for August the 6th, 2018, and unless I hear a different date. Gary, is there any recommendation on that, or just set it for August the 6th?
I would set it for the date specified.
Okay, all right. The public hearing is closed, so is there a motion to approve? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Antonio Perez, I represent the applicant. I don't think I'm going to be out of town on August the 6th. I don't know if
Okay.
y'all need me here or not. Okay.
I just was concerned about the delay. I know that sometimes it has to be certain 20 days or something like that, or 10 days and then 20 days, but this is a long time, so.
There's no prohibition on how long it is.
Okay.
Only how
Just the minute.
short it is.
And that short time is 20 days or
I believe it's only 10 days.
10 days? Okay. So can we go ahead and set it then for the 16th? July 16th is our next meeting, is that correct?
Is Nikki gonna be out of town then? You good?
Okay. Do I hear Travis, is there any reason why we can't set it for the July 16th then?
Now, I believe the second hearing, as council said, is the only 10 days. Seems correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, well then let's go ahead and change it to set the public hearing for July the 16th. And the recommended motion is to approve ordinance number 2018-05 on first reading. Do you have a motion? Did you already make? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Can we make sure that we let Kathy know that? I know she's on vacation, but if we can make sure she knows that. All right. Florida Department of Transportation, Exhibit A to the State Highway Lighting Maintenance and Compensation Agreement for fiscal year 2018-19. This is a annual agreement that began in June 25th, 2002. The fiscal impact for this is $13,238.32. The recommended motion is to approve the FDOT Exhibit A to the State Highway Lighting Maintenance and Compensation Agreement for fiscal year 2018-19. Is there any questions of the Commission of Staff? Any comments from staff on this? Gary, do you have any? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Sherry or Al, who's going to discuss this?
Sherry's gone.
Okay. Sherry, I'll let you come forward and let's talk about this. This is basically what it boils down to is that we're going to pay off this loan 2 years ahead of time. And it's a principal amount of $40,000 that we have been paying annually. So the financial impact is $80,063, and it will be coming out of the water sewer fund. And this is to help with our next project that we're going to have, which is the first phase of the inflow and infiltration project.
So basically, we have an inflow and infiltration project that we're planning on addressing the capacity to our sewer plant. If there's any questions about that, I'll let the utility director answer those questions. But the whole purpose of this is because we have this project going on, and we're addressing it with the inflow and infiltration first. And the hope is that that will put off the actual expansion of our plant. So this is the inflow and infiltration. It's going to be about a $3.4 million project when we finally complete it, and it's going to be done in phases, 3 phases. So they're ready to go ahead and start the first phase. And the first phase is estimated to cost $431,255. So what the staff's doing, we're trying to find the funding for this project to address it. And we have been utilizing the Florida Department of Environmental Protection State Revolving Loan Program. And that's a program where the DEP actually will give 0 to low interest rate loans with what they call forgiveness, and forgiveness is grants, of course. And so what has happened is that we have actually received the funding. It's been told to us, this funding has been set aside for you, and you have it. So we're in the preliminary stages of applying for the loan, getting the loan agreement. And part of that is when they took a look at our financials, our debt ratio was too high for them. So the DEP asked us to reduce our ratio by about $30,000 a year. So we had to go and try to figure out how to do that. And the easiest way for us to do that is to take one of our loans. It's the loan that we had for the Southside Sewer expansion. It was originally a $400,000 loan for 10 years. Most of the funding, or about half of it, comes from the assessments for the property owners that were assessed for the improvements. Those assessments are spread out over 20 years. And then if you'll recall, part of the funding was also from our CRA to complete that project. And we were getting $20,000 a year for the CRA, and as we know, the CRA doesn't have any money to fulfill that. And so there are 2 years left on this loan, and there's roughly $79,210, I believe, that's owed on it. And we feel like that is the quickest method. That's the quickest way for us to reduce our debt ratio and go ahead and proceed with this funding, because the funding is $431,000, and they will actually forgive $215,000 of that. And we can't progress until we get that. And so the hope is that by the time we do phase 1 and phase 2 comes along, we can get even better grant funding for it. And that's what we're trying to do. And so we're asking you tonight to let us go ahead and use reserves within the water sewer fund, and that's what those reserves have been set aside for, is to take care of the water sewer infrastructure. So that's what we're asking, is that we may pay that loan off and reduce the ratios so that we can get the funding.
Okay, so the recommendation is to pay off the loan in order to continue the funding request for the first phase of the inflow and infiltration project. And we're looking at a financial impact of $80,063 that will be moved out of the water sewer reserve funds to pay that.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor.
Sure. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Dan, if you don't mind, can you just give us a little overview of the project so people maybe that don't know what we're doing,
Just
Basically
what we're trying to accomplish?
Sure. Well, we're trying to cut groundwater flows. We probably get about 600,000 to 700,000 a day, which is putting our plant at 1.8. And we've actually reduced it here just recently by some repairs and the master lift station. We're at 1314 now. So we have reduced our flows quite a bit. We've repaired about 4 collapsed lines and doing clean outs also. And that's part of the first phase, is smoke test the manholes and the clean outs. That'll be that section. And then the second phase will be more like camera look at the lines and if they're collapsed or do they need to be linered. So that's pretty much the project.
Do you think that it'll get us a little bit more life of our existing?
I think it'll save us, and we may not have to expand, because my concerns about expanding, if we oversize the plant, that's going to cost us. And right now, I think it'll help us, because we do have an old system. Nothing's ever been done with this system. So this is the first of its kind to take place, really.
Done something, Commissioner, already to reduce the flows. The master lift station possibly could have been a big problem. We were consistently, our plant is a 1.5 million gallon plant. We were consistently at 1.8, 1.7, 1.9, and now all of a sudden we're at 1.3, 1.4, 1.3. So we've already made drastic improvements, and it could have been the lines that Danny's repaired, or the lift station, or not. We can't exactly put our finger on it. We did something right.
The master lift station definitely was part of it. I mean, that system was 30-plus years old, and this is sealed now, of course, and we were taking a lot of flows there because it was exposed to the weather.
How soon do you think you're going to start this project?
As soon as you approve this money. No, I'm just...
Any other questions of Danny? Comments, Sherry?
It's going to take a couple of months probably.
Yeah, probably.
The loan agreement to get in place, but they won't go any further until this gets taken care of.
Okay.
Sherry, I have a question for you. Now that we're going to get that money out of the reserves, because it's not a budget item, but it still can be used. Can you explain that process? I know we've had issues before on that. It's fine. I mean,
it's a little different when you're
Okay.
talking about enterprise funds, and I view it. I mean, it's kind of a necessity. We can't move forward, and this is something that we have to address. And the way the utility director has explained it to me when I've been sitting in meetings with him and Lynn, is that we've got to go forward. We don't have a choice. We have to fix this. Okay. So we really want to try to get funding to get these grants so that we don't have to use all of our
Enterprise fund's a complete different animal
Yes, sir.
than other funds.
Yeah.
But that's the way I have viewed it.
Okay, thank you.
This is pretty much mandatory. We have to do this by DEP. They were wanting us to expand the plant, so we've met with them several times, and this is one of the things they want us to do. We have to address this. So I feel very strong this will.
So in your opinion, this is the best way to address those concerns, okay?
Well, rather than spend $4 million for a plant.
Correct.
Still treating groundwater.
Yes, and that's a cost.
Right. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, agenda report number 5 was removed. Okay, all right. Al, discussion regarding increasing the number of golf course advisory board members from 5 to 7.
Yes, Mayor, we've had some additional interest in folks serving. U.S. Sugar's asked to have somebody on the board, or they have somebody they'd like to have on the board for us, and we thought we would expand the board to 7 people to have better input.
Okay. So do we need, I know it's an advisory board, and I appreciate the time and effort it takes for advisory board members. Do we need to have a motion to increase it from 5 to 7?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how much.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. At this time, any person is allowed to speak on any matter that pertains to city business. If you'd like to come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Jerry Cochran. I wouldn't want to disappoint you by not showing up. End of the year, first part of the year, we were talking about some changes with downtown redevelopment. Specifically, what I was interested in was changes to not allow some of these awful colors for buildings to be painted some of these colors. A good example is if you go into South Bay now, they've got a new truck parts store. If you look at that color, that is not what we want in Clewiston, I don't think. And there seemed to be support on the council to have some changes to colors to not allow some of these very bright colors. And it seems, what's happened to that?
Jerry, I think we've had several workshops in regards to overall the issues that we face as a community, not only with, some people might think that the color is fine, it's everybody's right, personal, private property, they can paint what they like. We do have a document that was prepared by the Regional Planning Council with input from with the public, that a Main Street corridor revitalization plan. And I believe that the last meeting we had, I think might have been back in March, but we really truly need to have that meeting again and have public input, as well as our CRA. Our CRA is, I think it's a very good instrument, and, we have not received input from them on this plan, even though some of them might have been in the meeting, or the P&Z for that matter. I think it has to be a strategic plan for the future as we envision Clewiston. And I know some people talk about the color, some people talk about the issue of parking, so, a lot of us, believe the landscaping is important as well. So it's a multifaceted approach. And I agree, it's something that we have to sit down and have some more workshops with all three of those, the commission, the community, the CRA, as well as the P&Z board. Because I think Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, when we look at our future of our future land use map, and as well as our plans for the future, those are some things that we should look at every so often. I think 2015 might have been the last time that we looked at our comprehensive plan. Right, and I know that we have met with the county as well, and talked about the Highway 27, Highway 80 corridor as it relates to, that is our living room, and it is our front porch. And county-wide, there's some issues that we need to face together. So the county also wants to be involved in those discussions. And I think that we've all been so busy and everything else right now, but for the future, it's certainly something that we have to get done. And so I appreciate you coming tonight and reminding us of that, because we do need to address it.
Well, I appreciate that. I know the wheels of government turn slowly, but we're a little too slow on this. And driving in from the east or the west, I don't think that's the picture that we want to portray of our city. And I think the sooner we can get back on this and get it back on track and start moving forward, the better off the city's going to be for it.
And I agree
It
with
just
you.
it's not in nobody's interest, I don't think, or not in the city's interest, for this to get delayed because, well, we got this issue to deal with or that issue to deal with. There's some pretty smart folks in Clewiston that got some good ideas, and I think.
And it is a big, a big topic to wrap around, because not all of us agree. So we have to come up with a consensus for the majority to agree. So
But
I look forward to having those workshops.
If we start
again.
talking about it, we can come to agreement.
I agree.
Or some type of consensus at least, but we got to start talking again. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Any other comments tonight? Okay, City Attorney.
Two items I'd like to mention. The first one is the McCarthy substation closing. You had previously approved an extension of that closing until July 1st. FPL has ordered a survey of the easement area that they desire the city to grant to them. And there's been some confusion over the extent of the easement and exactly what that should entail. That survey has not come in yet. It's being produced by FPL's survey team. I talked to them today, and they're not probably going to be able to complete that this week. It'll probably be until the following week that that's completed. So I'm going to be asking you for an extension to close that transaction up until July 20th, if possible.
Okay.
That would be a motion.
Okay, I need a motion to, well,
Is this easement to the south or to the north?
This is the substation is on an easement, and then there's an easement running to the north through what is the FPL substation site, which they want us to include in this grant. If I have that correct, Danny? Yeah.
Okay, and I know that there's just not us, there's several people, several attorneys that are, FP&L attorney, you're involved.
Yes.
There's
Sugar.
other attorneys, Sugar's attorneys are involved, and they're looking at all this. So you believe that July 20th, a closing before July 20th is possible?
I believe it is possible.
Okay, all right.
And I would like to also note that I've told FPL that Clewiston is not going to sign off on the FMPA legal opinions until this deal closes.
Okay.
And so they're well aware of the ramifications of it.
Okay.
Well, that and they keep dragging it on, and it's costing us more and more money,
I-
paying you to keep looking at things too, so.
And they're
the
not,
longer it's
but
dragged
they're
out.
not reducing what they agreed to, is that correct?
No, they're
Because
not.
of,
They've agreed not to take any more depreciation.
okay, all right, okay. Right,
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Okay.
The agreement hasn't been signed because all this is, now surfacing, and we're not being able to close the deal. And
Right. Which is always our intent, to close the deal first. Okay. The wheels, that's correct, absolutely. It goes right back to where the funds were taken. So that was decided at a meeting several meetings back, Danny.
But Counselor, you don't see any problems.
I do not see any problems,
our
and
problem,
FP&L is not seeing any problems. So
As
we
long as
should
we
go.
don't sign the FMPA.
Are we the only one that hasn't signed yet? Sorry, Commissioner. Are we the only one that hasn't signed yet, Al? Do you know? Do we know that everybody else has signed, or?
We're not going to, no. Our opinion, we haven't signed it yet, but this deal's got to go first. We've told them we will not sign until this is closed.
Right, and I believe that the final is not till October of this year, or somewhere in the fall, I think, Danny, October, November.
Right.
The whole transaction, complete transaction.
Which they know that
Right.
also.
Right,
Well, FMPA wanted to close in escrow last Friday, and they don't have our documents, our opinions in escrow.
okay, I agree. So we haven't, so the request from the attorney is from July 1st to July the 20th for the date of before the July 20th for the closing on the McCarthy substation.
Yeah, the FP&L is concerned. They want to get this done. They contacted me Friday and Gary today, so they're working on it.
All right, well, it's a benefit to them as well, so to all of us. Okay, is there a motion to move from the 1st to the 20th?
So moved.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, yes, two things you said.
And then I'd just like to comment on the reason why item number 5 was deleted from the agenda. The police chief asked for a clear ordinance laying out when and if they can confiscate vehicles that are used in crimes. And that's what we were trying to provide. Just this last week, the Supreme Court of the United States took jurisdiction of a case which involves whether or not the 8th Amendment is going to be applied to the states through the 14th Amendment, meaning that the prohibition against excessive fines would then come into play against the states. So, for instance, if you were to stop somebody in their vehicle for a crime, whatever it is, that has a maximum fine of, say, $10,000, but then you turn around and you confiscate their $80,000, $90,000 Range Rover as part of that, that might very well be considered an excessive fine under the United States Constitution if the Supreme Court rules, I mean,
They're gonna
sometime next term,
Okay,
they'll decide it.
all right, so that's why it was pulled.
Question, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
These same vehicles that he's been looking at have been out here more than 6 years.
No, that's a different issue now.
Okay.
And we've taken care of that issue. I've given the police chief direction on how to dispose of those.
Nobody's told me about it.
Well,
And
no,
I'm
he's
the
keeping
one-
it to himself as a
Okay,
surprise,
I'll
I
talk to
think.
him about it.
But you've advised them on what needs to be done there.
Yes, I have.
Okay, all right. So those are the only two issues for tonight?
Unless anyone has any questions of me.
Any questions? Okay, all right, Al?
Now, Danny, the new water line for the Hampton Inn, is that going to be online tomorrow possibly, or?
Be all done tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I know our city engineer is here. Tommy, if you don't mind, if you could just give us an update on the whole project and where we're at and what's going on with it.
The contractor had some troubles getting the bacteriologicals passed, but they have passed. He made the connection at Pasadena and Circle today. We moved over slightly with the connection at, across the street from the library. And when we did, the water line size changed, so he had to get a different part. He'll have that tomorrow. He's planning to make change the connection there.
Okay, and you said that the actual water samples were not sufficient?
The first set didn't pass. That's not an uncommon thing. The second set passed.
Okay. Danny, I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood you, but I thought you said that the first set had passed.
No.
The original first set did not pass?
Let me go back and say that we had a set that passed. DEP asked us to add a third sampling point, and that's when we had to go through it twice.
Okay, all right. And what's the time? I mean, how long does that usually take?
You have to have it done within 60 days. You approve the line. If it goes over, you have to retest.
Okay, and is that what we had to do, Tommy?
No.
That
It was simple. They asked us to pick up a third sampling point.
Okay,
we
so
had to
there
go
was
back
not a
and-
delay of 60 days?
No.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely not.
Okay, all right. Okay, any questions about the water line? So tomorrow water should be running just fine? Okay, so everybody else so will everybody have access to the line, or when will they have access to the line?
Everybody will have access to the line. The contractor's going back and moving those meters over to it. So
Okay, all right, so will that take a day or 2 days?
a day or so.
Okay, so, okay,
They'll be done this week.
okay, all right.
We got some work Thursday to do.
Okay, I noticed some paving. Is all the paving that we had when we bored across the road, is everything's done? I haven't gone to all the areas, so I don't know.
I think there's one more spot that has to be paved.
Okay, and when's that going to be done?
I am not sure about that. I don't have a date for that.
Do you have anything?
They're supposed to have it done this week.
Okay, all right. So by Friday, we hope it's all done. The line will be running, and the paving will be done, according to both of y'all.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
The blowout, has it been finished?
Yes. The one in Pasadena's gone. And the other one
Well,
is going.
no, the one on,
Del Rio,
yeah.
that's fine.
The paving at Del Rio, that's already been taken.
Done,
Yeah,
that's done.
yeah, that's already been
Been
taken care of.
done?
Yeah.
This is just about the Hampton Inn project, correct? Okay. All right. Is there anything else from the engineer? Do you have anything else for us?
I have nothing else.
Okay. All right. Okay, Al?
I just wanted I was just about to send you guys the sketch of the Trinidad Park project, the FERDAP grant, and where the bathroom's going to go this morning, and I sent it to staff for one more view, and it was mentioned that the sidewalk's not in the map, so we're sending that back to Tommy to depict that on there. Then I'll send it to you guys to approve the location. We're moving forward with
And
that.
it'll go through from there. Okay. I know we have, is it March of 2019, Sherry, that we have to have that finished? The grant has to be completed, the work at Trinidad Park. I'm sorry, Lynn. Yes. Okay. March. April 1st. Okay. All right. Okay. So Al, will you give us that update tomorrow? Okay. Is there anything else? Is there anything
No,
else,
that's
Al?
all I've got.
Okay.
I went by there and tried. I couldn't find where it was plotted to put the stakes. Where's that bathroom exactly? I couldn't see that where they staked it off. Would you go in
It's just off to the parking spaces where you pull in there. It's just off to the left.
to the left?
It's on the corner of the park and the
Outside.
corner of the soccer field, kind of in that area.
Outside the fence.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's been determined as the best spot
Yes.
from a financial and for the grant? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Now, one more thing. I know that the budget, we have a little overrun budget on the project.
Yes.
And I saw it's a very nice bathroom. Now, can we try to scale that down? So, if I remember, it was $30,000 over budget. I couldn't remember. I read it. So, what I'd like to do is try to get this thing within the budget. Where we're not having to expend any more city funds. So, and I know the bathrooms are very nice. They look very nice, but we may not be able to build that nice of a bathroom there. We can look at 2 or 3 different options. So we may be able to cut that $30,000 excess of budget.
We can look at some additional models, but I can assure you this one's not the Cadillac model. No, it's just those prefab buildings are expensive.
$50,000. That's a lot of money.
But, I know Lynn is here, and she probably knows more about the grant than the rest of us. So, Lynn, I'm going to put you on the spot. Come on up.
I think the county's Bo Pelham Park, if you've ever been out there to see that little bathroom, it's similar to that, and that was $55,000 10 years ago, I
Lynn,
believe.
can you go ahead and come on up?
I'm close. I can't remember. They're expensive.
I know that on the grant that there were some in-kind, we have to do a certain portion.
Right.
We have to, the in-kind services, or there's a match there.
Right.
Can you just kind of go over that real quick? Do you have the figures on top of your head?
Not like Sherry would.
Sorry.
But we're trying, I think where we can maybe contain the cost a little bit is on the pavilion, if we can build it in-house.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at. We think we can maybe cut 10 or maybe as much as 20,000, shave that off. Our options with the bathroom, there's just some added costs with the site building the site up and the stub up and all of that. Okay. So I don't know what it would cost to. My husband built a couple of bathrooms over at U.S. Sugar, and he said, going for a design build, you can easily run up to 100,000. So I don't, it's just more expensive to build a bathroom than you might imagine. Wow. I'm starting to learn.
But we're looking at saving some cost on the actual in-house work, as well as volunteer work. Probably, I think that there's going to be some of that as well.
Yes.
So that therefore the project will probably, I think it's a great project because I think that I go by there quite a bit on the weekends just when I'm riding. And it's constantly being used, the fields, and so I'm glad to know that there's some public-private, and just continue for us to get that done because it is important.
Yeah,
so I'm glad to see about the cost. I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, we really are trying to get it in budget, but we're also trying to, if we anticipate that it's going to overrun now, we'd like to get that in next year's budget so that we're not dealing with it. When we're ready to install it.
Due to the size, too. It's so small, you've got the same amount of labor involved in 2 little bathrooms as you would if it was a bigger project.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that plays a part.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Comments? Okay. Al, is there anything else?
No, that's all I've got, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Rowland?
I was looking at the Clewiston News today, and they have a tremendous article on the second page about the algae blooms that have happened on the lake. It's really, really interesting, and
I believe Katrina Elkson wrote the article.
And the algae blooms it's a water that comes from the north. It's not anything that we can do down here.
Right.
There's not anything that anybody can do to stop it.
So the lake doesn't cause the algae at all. The lake, I'm saying I don't.
Well,
curious.
Julio, hot water causes algae blooms, but there has to be a certain amount of microisms in the water that hook back to feces that comes from the north of the lake.
And again, I know that we've talked about this, but 95% of the water that comes to Lake Okeechobee is from the north.
95
to 97%.
The reason I asked is because everything is blamed on the lake. I didn't know the answer to that.
Well, it's blamed on the lake, but also the first word that you hear out of people's name, them calling something as Big Sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely a falsehood. There's no water that comes from south of the lake unless we're inundated with water.
And it's an emergency situation.
Emergency situation. That's the only water that comes south of the lake.
And then plus they're spraying the lake 5 days a week, killing the vegetation that's going to water.
And I've been fighting with those people even as late as this afternoon. And I asked this same lady last week, I said, if you're telling me that you spray hyacinths and you spray lettuce, and they fall to the bottom, and they rot, what happens to the rot? What does it turn into? She says, I really don't want to answer that. And I said, well, I'll answer it for you. It's methane gas. And that's what it is. Right. And it's one of the worst things that you can have. And y'all have all heard me talk. There used to be 4 boats. Now there's 20 boats.
And there's people posting, offering pictures of them spraying where there are no grasses.
Right.
Spraying like crazy.
Oh, well, the thing they say they do, Christine, is once they're through spraying, they go out to the open lake to spray, to clean out all their hoses and everything. Because they have a hose that they can throw overboard, and it's the mixture hose. But I'm not sure I believe that.
I have a bridge for sale too.
but Commissioner Rodriguez, you talked about on May 11th. I was over in Fort Myers for a conference, the Save the Water Summit, and the lieutenant colonel from the Corps of Engineers gave a presentation. And what I remember from the presentation on May 11th was the simple words that she said: Lake Okeechobee does not produce the water, but everybody blames the water from Lake Okeechobee. But she was clear that the algae is formed in all water parts. All water bodies have algae. But the bottom line is that Lake Okeechobee does not produce the water.
Okay. But can I say one more thing?
Absolutely, go ahead.
This is the thing: is it doesn't produce the water, but the water comes from a 3-canal system that the Corps of built back in the 50s, 1950 to 1960. And that 3-canal system was to drain 5,500 square miles into a 700 square mile lake. And you can do the numbers. They don't work. That doesn't work. Right. So if we're not going to get ACR wells north of the lake for them to inject water down into not the aquifer, this would be to another area, that they could actually get the water back out of this thing. I'm not sure you'd want to get any nasty water, really. But if you had that capability, it would relieve us putting 300 billion gallons to tide, and everybody's worried about fresh water. There's not a person that's not worried about fresh water. Right. But you cannot continue to use feces-laden water, and that's what is coming to the lake from the north.
Okay, all right. Is there anything else tonight, Commissioner Rowland?
I'm done.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson?
I have a couple of things. First thing I want to talk about is emergency management. We had a number of conversations, and you and I had a couple of them after the last hurricane season. And so I need to know where we're at with taking some of these hats off of Travis. He did a very good job. However, we are overloading him, and we are not doing him a service by putting everything on his plate. We have Aaron. We have an assistant chief of police now who is highly qualified. So within the next 2 weeks, I would like to see a little bit more of a firm plan for emergency management and how that will roll out, how we can utilize Travis's talents, how we can use their talents for emergency management and not keep restricting Travis from what he needs to do with the fire department and some of the search and rescue and some of the other things. I just think it wasn't fair. And in deference, you picked up a lot last year because they had some people that weren't really up to snuff working in other parts, and so it went well. but I think it would be wrong of us to expect you to take that mantle on again. So I want to make sure that we take a look at that. I want to make sure that the city's COOP plan has been updated. For the time being, all of the department's emergency operation plans need to go to Travis. They all need to be digitally uploaded. They needed to be print out. They need to be put in a 3-ring binder. And I would like to see copies of those EOP plans, the emergency operation plans for every one of the departments. Sean, we've talked a number of times about your people having ICS 100 and 200. Have they?
I myself have been certified at that.
Everybody who's a first responder. I've offered a number of times. The last week of July, if you will let me know, I will open the classroom, we will put them on the computers, and we'll get that done. Because anybody that gets behind the wheel of a backhoe, bulldozer, or anything, immediately after a storm is subject to FEMA coming and taking a look at all of that documentation. And they're getting, I think Sherry can attest, they're getting pickier and pickier about some of the things they're looking at. Danny's guys need to have that. Anybody who is qualified as that first responder. And for us in the city, just about everybody, including finance, is an immediate response when we have any kind of an event.
Yes, ma'am. You said last week of July?
Yes. Yep. Yes, after the 25th. I'll be back in town on the 25th. So from the 25th to the 3rd of August, I'll be glad to get them on.
Will it take us a week, you think? How long?
No, it will take us a morning. Or we can do it an hour in 2 mornings. I'll put them on the computers. I'll put it up on the whiteboard. We will walk them through it. They'll take their test at the end. We'll print out everybody's certificates, and the city will be good to go.
How many were your classroom?
I have 20 computers that we can access.
Then I'll have
Yes.
20 people there, and we'll just get them through until everybody's done.
Okay.
Last week of July, we'll be done.
Great. And I'd like for Chief Marcy and Travis to have a conversation about reentry. We dodged a bullet last year, big time. And we complied with the governor's evacuation processes, but we were a little bit willy-nilly on the reentry. We lucked out. I think LaBelle was struggling a little bit more about reentry than we were. But I think that we need to include that in the plan. Are we going to do a 3-phase? Are we going to do a 2-phase? What's the badging system going to be like for city employees? So I want to make sure that we've got that up to snuff and that we're doing the appropriate things that we need to do for the city, for our citizens, for employees.
And Al, will you follow up with Commissioner Peterson's concerns about our safety plan? I know that the county has a new emergency manager. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet with him, if you and Travis have met with him yet?
Many times.
Okay, so the new emergency manager, so.
We've got a lot of catching up.
Because he's going to ask for all of that. He's going to ask for the updated COOP plan, and he's going to ask for everybody's EOP. So I want to make sure that we've got them in one place, and that we've got identified those people who are going to be on those shifts, that we're going to take some of that off of you, and it's going to work well, and all of the departments will be happy with who they have in there.
Okay. And
so that we don't have to hear about people qualified to make decisions.
Okay, and so what I'd like to do is have that at our next meeting on the 16th. Al, if you give us an update, you and Travis, to the commission.
Okay. While we're on fire, I read a couple of reports recently that caused me a little bit of concern. And we've talked a number of times about the materials that you guys are having to deal with. And especially down here, in the heat. You guys go in and you've got full CPAC on. They are utilizing a smaller mask so that you're not inserted into that hot zone. You may still be in a warm zone. You may even be in a cold zone, but all of those particles in that air. The instances of respiratory cancer for firefighters are like 735% higher than they are for the regular person. Would you look into those smaller masks? They have removable filters. Okay.
Palm Beach County has implemented that. We haven't as yet.
Okay.
We want to.
Moving forward, I think that's something we need to take a look at.
Yeah, we do check this stuff. See, you're studying this a little bit, and what Commissioner Peterson was talking about is our firefighters get exposed to, in the state of Florida, we all get exposed to the same structure fires. Those same percentages are in the air. Henry County's purchased the meters. We have safety meters that we check before we go in. We'll get hydrogen cyanide down to 5 parts per million. We'll get our carbon monoxide down to 35 percentage point per part per million. But what we found out, exactly what you touched on, OSHA set those rules for workers.
Right.
They never thought about the firefighter. And what they found out is those body temperatures are going up in that gear. It's a crazy percentage, but they're telling me over 400% more absorption is going into the firefighters, and that's where you're seeing, if you go and look online and read some of the University of Florida has done some great work. They're working with Palm Beach County right now. The different cancers, they're just astronomical.
I know she's talking about isolating firefighters and moving them out into their own categories.
It is amazing. And I will tell you, on a note is we're moving forward. The commission bought us an extractor washer. We've changed, we no longer eat smoke. We're no longer proud of it. That used to be a trend in the fire service. We're tough as nails. We can eat the smoke. We don't do that anymore. We've changed how we do that. We wash our gear more often. The city has now bought duty shirts. Those firefighters come in. I make them take those shirts off quickly, put on a T-shirt before we put the gear, all in an effort not to keep that on our bodies. So I know a lot of these guys can't take a shower immediately before they go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing all those things. There's other things I don't want to waste your time on, but I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Okay. It's a date.
I guess we're live because one of my guys just texted me, said we're all certified.
Okay, very good. Okay. Tom, I said thank you. The county at their last commission meeting had a conversation about debris removal, and they're moving forward with hopefully local companies for the debris removal this year.
Mm-hmm.
So would you just make sure that you're in on those conversations
Yes,
so that we have those contracts?
Been
and
working
stuff?
on that with Charles, and
Okay.
moving forward where what they're proposing is Clewiston will have its choice of the contractors. LaBelle will have their choice of the contractors they want to use. So that's what we're proposing right now.
All right. So that
It'll be much more friendly.
and that would reduce some of that stress. A lot of the stress last year was that debris. I thought we were never going to get over debris. But if we can identify that and have those conversations with those construction companies up front, because there's going to be a number of places that are looking to grab them. So I want to make sure that we've got everything in line. Okay. That's it. Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Al, the tree project on 27, we have one more phase that we've applied for. Do we know, have we been accepted for the third phase of our funding, or she may be able to answer that.
Lynn can probably
grant-
answer that
Lynn?
better than I can.
The applications are due October 1st, so
We're gonna
we
have
won't
them
get
in,
funding probably till early next year. But Edgewood, our contractor, has given us a quote. We figure we can do maybe 35 more trees in the next phase.
We want to go
So
all
that's
the
what
way
we're
to
shooting
where,
for.
It should take us over to Olympia.
Olympia, is that what we're
It'll, yeah, 35 trees will take us about 5 trees past WC Owen. So it'll be in front of the new Hampton Inn.
Right. And then there's
the
another
Walgreens.
phase that we'll apply for, just like we did last time we had.
Yeah, we'll be
It was
down
two
to-
phases that we applied for. So there's a total of 4 phases,
Where's the other one take it to? All the way to?
all the way to Olympia.
All the way to Olympia. Oh, okay. Okay. And also, maybe if Travis, I don't want to put Travis on the spot, Travis, but can you give us an update on, the permits that are being pulled? What's,
Travis, if you can come
some of the
to the
things that are,
microphone, please.
some of the new businesses that are coming, what kind of growth are we having, as far as rooftops, what's your activity in your department? Because, I see things, people always, there's rumors out there that, we got this.
No shortage of rumors.
Okay, there's
No
always-
grocery store yet.
There's
So
always
no
rumors.
grocery store yet.
Give us an
Start that
update on our current situation as far as, businesses coming,
Well-
new homes being built. in
Well, let me just say
Clewiston.
this. The homes, remodels, new construction, we're back up to where we were in our boom. So we're really moving forward. Our number of permits, I can't quote the number to you right now, but it's high. It's probably as high as it's ever been, and I've seen it. Since I've been over probably maybe 12 years at the building department. So it's using that as a gauge to the city of the private economy, I think is going very well. So it's not just the trend of what we saw with the hurricane. We can pretty much, for Clewiston, those are roofs. Pretty much no structural damage, just roofs. So if you take that out of the equation, everything else I'm looking at, people are spending money, so they must feel confident. New houses, you can see them, they're going up all over the place.
remodels on commercial businesses are up. So we're feeling good. And we can feel the pinch with employees. Recently you approved my interlocal, but just shortly after that approval, that employee left the employee of the county and now seek other opportunities. He was offered another job for another county. So the county, Hendry County, had to now go back to a private provider. So me and Al will be discussing that, trying to get some help that way. So that, all those things, it may be bad for the city and the county, but it shows that the work is out there throughout Florida, and we're no exception. I mean, it's happening here too.
How about new businesses on the 27? How about the businesses that have been bought, or is there a
There definitely, yes, there has. There's been a. It's not a secret. Sugar Realty is gone. Has been sold. That's going to be a complete demo. There's a new auto zone going in at that location. So no secret there now.
Med Express
already broken ground.
Some good news about the Med Express. I had a good meeting with Steve Roll Friday with Danny and Sean, and he gave some insight on what he's working on. The Med Express is going to employ 20-something people. I didn't know that. I thought there'd be 3 people sitting in there, but there's going to be 20-something people in that building. That's big.
That's excellent.
He's working with some other vendors to go in his empty space in the plaza there. He's negotiating with Harbor Freight Tools and one other one similar to Harbor Freight, Northern Tools. Anyway, he thinks he may be able to land one of them eventually, but that's more jobs.
And you see the county with the comprehensive plan changes they've been going through for everything for our side for 80 and 27. There's 640 acres there just going through a comprehensive rezone. And if you notice, coming back towards Clewiston. So there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement, I think, that things are going in the right direction. We want to be right there to help them move forward.
So in the absence of the employee from the county that we were going to, what do we need to do to help you?
Well, I'll be speaking with Mr. Perry, but I think we'll increase a little bit more in the budget to pad for a private inspector, maybe augment 1 or 1.5 days a week.
So our interlocal with the county, even though, they're going to go private, they're not.
No, they're still advertising. That could change anytime.
They're looking.
But in the meantime,
the county has had that out for 30 days. No secret there. We're offering $65,000 a year, state retirement, and no takers. Not one qualified applicant over 30 days. So, and that's not unusual because there's a market. The economy is good.
Mm-hmm.
And when the economy is bad, they could fill that position in 2 days.
Yep.
So I think right now my suggestion is to keep up with demand. I want to talk to Mr. Perry more about how we can do that. And we've had some discussion about how we can do that with the private provider. And if they get that employee hired, that's great. The interlocal, let's keep it in place.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much better deal for both of us.
Okay. So having said that, there's no new restaurants. There's nothing that's being turned into.
We call Pollo Tropical, but no.
There's going to be 3 takeouts.
No.
Don't scare me.
No, sir. No new restaurants. No new box stores or anything right now. There's a couple properties that we're set on. I don't want to talk too much about them, but I think they're going to be reoccupied with new businesses now. I'm excited for that. I think we're going to see some changes.
Do you think some of our closed buildings?
There's a couple. There are 2
occupied?
separate hardware outfits have been talking to me about different locations. So maybe one of those will actually bite and come here. So I think they look at Ace Hardware and they have a growing business. And with all the construction we're talking about, there is a need. I think maybe enough to sustain a second hardware store. Or actually a third. We already have True Value, but it kind of is a specialized retail.
And Travis, while you're there, can you just give us an update on the building board when they last met, and is there another meeting coming up?
Yes, Mayor. We have another meeting. I don't have the date right here in front of me, but the couple.
July 18th.
Is it July 18th? Thank you. A couple items on the agenda. We have a home that was damaged, or some apartments that were damaged by fire. We've been working with the owner on that. It doesn't seem like they're going to be able to make the improvements they need to. It's part of our not just our standards, but they run into the floodplain where they have to elevate. I won't get into all the details, but sometimes you have these older buildings. It's just not worth it. So they may raise that one and build something new, hopefully there. You'll see on Ventura, one of our 2 stories that been there, I don't know how long, way longer than I've been around, finally went down, and that was through the building board.
Okay.
That was dilapidated for many, many years. It had a couple changes of ownership finally, so it's gone. The Hungry Howie's building, most of y'all familiar, so building on North Francisco, is in non-compliance. It will be coming back before the board at the next meeting for non-compliance. It's a very good possibility that one will come down. So things are moving along. There's it escapes me. There's another one on the agenda as well.
Ford, Travis, the Ford.
Nothing moving that I've heard on the Ford garage yet. Investors bought it, but
Nothing yet on that.
I haven't had any interest. But that could change in a day. Someone get interested in that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis.
Commissioner Rodriguez,
That's
anything
all.
else? Okay.
The only thing I've got is the Commerce Park I'd like for staff to look at again. I know I beat that like a dead horse,
Keep beating
but
it.
it's just it costs the city money. You know, I'm to the point to say just give it away. It goes on the taxes, we don't have to mow it, and maybe somebody would put something in it, but if we can look at marketing it, something to try to see if we can get something out of it. No, we'll never get what we got in it. But
I had a realtor call me a couple weeks ago and said she had some interest in it, and this is probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard back from her yet.
Al, if we
She
could
wanted me to
just-
send her the information on it again. So.
Right. If we can run down the folks who've contacted you that are interested in the Commerce Park, can you run those down, those calls down, and just get us, just to see
easy.
where we need to be at on that, okay?
Easy.
All right.
Maybe one.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, just run it down, though.
Okay.
I know it's summertime and vacations are going on, but I'd like for us to get just for you to run it down and see if what the interest really is.
Mayor, I got
Okay.
a question. Do
Yes,
you
sir.
think we could ever change the use of that property one day? So, I don't know what it could be, whether it's residential or whatever it is, so we could start selling those lots and trying to recover some of our money.
Right.
Because eventually, I know that it's been mentioned we're waiting on the airport to make the difference.
You have a lot of restrictions
No, but
on that property.
and I realize that, and I agree with you on that. But we've loosened up a little bit since then, I think.
We've made
How?
some modifications.
We made some modifications.
We did make some modifications last year, I think.
Case by case, I think we would.
And
But
Commissioner.
let's don't do it case by case.
No, I agree with you. Probably not. You're right.
Well, and I think right now.
Let's look at the whole thing.
Were you going to ask anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and continue the conversation about the Commerce Park. I know that all of this is in public records, but when we started the project for the Commerce Park, okay, we had a viable business that was going to build
Absolutely.
and create jobs, and it was diversifying from from just mostly being agricultural jobs to manufacturing jobs. I mean, we had a groundbreaking. The manager moved to town. We were going to have we were going to be able to offer new jobs in the community, and it was an investment. I mean, we took money from reserves, and we converted it from cash to land assets. We received, and I think it was over $1 million, I believe, in grant funding commitments, or that we were going to have that kind of funds. But because during the recession, that manufacturing firm decided not to continue with the project, and they said, we have to walk away from it because we can't do it in the recession. We have a park. It is shovel-ready. There was some guidelines on it because we didn't want it to be completely industrial. We've made some changes. I think it was last year. But, even though that land is there, it is still an asset of the city. And I believe that there is value there. And I think that as we check to see if there's any interest in that, I'm hoping that land asset will revert back to cash assets. I think that it will. I think that those, you already have everything in there, all the infrastructure in there. Anything outside of town doesn't have that infrastructure that park has, completely. So I think we need to look at it. I think we need to see what the next steps are. So, Al, if you can give us an update at the next meeting on the Commerce Park. And Gary, I know that we made modifications last year, let's look at that again in the overall, I think it was called the Commerce Park CPID or something like that. Let's look at that. Let's look at that and see what the opportunities, what we're looking for the future there. Because certainly I would like to have that land asset come back to the city as a cash asset and going back into the reserves. But as I mentioned, during that recession, they backed away. And as a city, we wanted those jobs. We wanted those jobs, and we had hoped that would happen, and it didn't happen. So we are, as David mentioned earlier, we had to expense those grants, and we took a hit on that. My hope is that it will come back as cash to the city. But in that recession, and through those years, as you know, we just did what we needed to do to keep running as a city. We continued to keep our departments going. We didn't have the massive layoffs in the recession, even though we took the hit on the Commerce Park. But I think one of the most important things when we look around our town today, and as David mentioned tonight, that there's no doubt that things are looking better. There's no doubt that I believe that for us to get through the recession and its aftermath, to do what we did, was exactly what we needed to do. And we do have that land asset. And also during the recession, there was an opportunity for the city to again take cash assets and move them to land assets. And that was the entire block where the East tennis courts sit, directly behind the Clewiston Inn. During the recession, that land was offered for sale to the city. And that investment, we took money out of reserves, and we had purchased that entire block. Otherwise, that entire block, as it was zoned for future land use of commercial, could have been another hotel, it could have been a convenience store, it could have been a gas station. So when we talk about the land assets of the city that we've invested our reserves into, and I look at that entire block and I realize that yes, for me, taking those reserves and buying that East tennis court block, that entire block, was what needed to be done during the recession for us to maintain what I believe is the heart of Clewiston. And so as we talk about the Commerce Park, that is definitely something that we can, I think, bring back cash assets. That tennis court block, we preserved it for the future, for the quality of life, and not that we're ever going to sell that block. That is for the future of the community. And so I believe it was a worthwhile investment when we look at what happened during the recession. So I just wanted to mention it tonight as we were talking about it. Last meeting, we had discussions about water and sewer fees, recycling. Al and I did meet with Commissioner Turner and with the county manager, Charles Chapman, and we did talk about several of the things that were brought up tonight of the relationship with the city and the county. And so there's some follow-up that the county is going to deliver to the city manager, and some follow-up meetings. But I just want to let y'all know that we did have that meeting. We are looking at those costs. I think Al continues to work on the just the fees involved in solid waste. So, but we are waiting back from the county on that. So as soon as we get something, I know that Al will share it with the commission. So I just wanted to, as we were talking about tonight about our land assets, I just wanted to bring that up.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
One of the things that I'd like for everybody to understand, in 2006, the city of Clewiston was valued at $300 million. 2012, when I took office, the value of the city of Clewiston was $200 million. A 33% decrease in the city of Clewiston. Your tax dollars raised 33% less.
Correct.
Now, we have gained along to where I think we're at 237 or something.
I think that's correct.
But when you take a hit like that in a recession time, and I will say a lot for the commissioners that were serving at that time, they really never raised taxes. I mean, it was still at 6.22. It was at 6.22 when I took office, and the only time it's been raised was last year. And I will say that Julio voted against it, and Molly voted against it.
Yeah. And I know that's a good. I mean, that's a very good point. And I think that during that time, you know, staff was here, and you know, all of us. What we were trying to do is to get through, knowing that better days were ahead, and better days are here. You know, even though we don't have the Commerce Park sold yet, you know, I have no doubt that for Clewiston's future, it is a better future. It is a better future from where we're at. It's a better future because I really, truly believe that there's a sweetness in our community, not just because we're America's sweetest town, but I believe it's a sweet future for our community. And so I'm glad we're at where we're at, and we've gone through some tough days, but I truly believe better days are ahead. So is there anything else before the commission tonight? Okay, we'll have we'll go ahead and recess for the meeting, from this meeting, and we'll take a little 10-minute break and get back for our budget workshop. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion, second? Meeting adjourned.